Good morning. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
We can hear you. Who is?
Yes, Mario. Good morning.
This is Hans-Ru. Good morning.
Hello. Yes. Hello. We are starting in. We are right now. We are starting.
All right.
Nice to meet every one of you.
Morning, Mario. Vali Rakovsky is here.
Good morning.
Good to have you online. Hello, Fari. Hello, Alexander. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Let us start. This is one of the advantages of having an online seminar, that we can start easily. And thanks, I see that the agenda is uploaded.
Good morning, Mario and colleagues. It's Sue Probert here.
Hello, Sue. Good
Sue.
morning.
Nice to hear you. And I would like to welcome you. And first of all, I would like to remind some things that Alexander just mentioned in Russian. This is the 10th Odessa seminar. This year we are going to hold it in 3 consecutive days. In the mornings till 1 o'clock. Today we start at 9. Tomorrow probably at 9:30 until 1 o'clock. The 3 days. And some general reminders. Please switch off other programs using internet in order not to interfere for your proper participation in the seminar. If there is some interface sound interference, please switch to microphone. Those who are not speaking, please mute yourself. If there are problems, you may wish to switch off the video, and maybe it's better to switch off the video. If you have questions, please use the chat. We are using Zoom. It's very easy to find the chat. Please ask questions in the chat. There will be people following up on the questions. We have envisaged enough time after each session to use to have answers and further discussion. And last point, which is probably obvious for all of you, there is interpretation. If you haven't switched it on the lower side of your screen, there must be several buttons. The last but one on the right is interpretation. If it's not switched on, please choose your language, English or Russian, and you can use it. There are some changes. There were some changes in the government of Ukraine last week. So we will now start with the opening remarks as they are mentioned, and we'll start with the director of our division in the UNECE. But before that, I wanted to say some points about our seminar. These are difficult times. We are all facing sanitary and economic issues, but also there are social issues that are being faced. So this is probably one of the reasons for changes now. The primary target of this seminar are government regulatory agencies, which need even more action to harmonize the exchange of information, exchange of data. And we are quite interested that to promote the international UN standards for the exchange of data among documents in different modes of transport and data. So the issues that we are going to discuss, we hope, will lead to the development of recommendations at the end of this seminar, which we can address to the relevant stakeholders in the governments of our countries and to the business community. We, like last year, we have looked into the development of standards, the use of standards in projects existing and new projects in Eastern Europe. we would be very much interested to work further with you, with the governments and business communities of your countries to use the UNECE FACT standards. I would suggest that we establish a drafting team. Mr. Fyodorov, one of our assistants, Mr. Akopian, me, Mr. Platonov, and Sue Probert probably will add some comments so that we draft these recommendations and we try to involve the stakeholder community. With no more ado, I would like to ask the director of the Economic Development and Trade Division of UNECE, Elizabeth Turk, to take the floor. Alexander, you are not muted. Ah, okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Mario. Can you hear me? Acoustics okay?
Yes, yes, it is.
Thank you. Dear Mr. Platonov, Mr. Fedorov, Mr. Petrov, Ms. Probert, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this 10th anniversary UNECE Odessa seminar on trade facilitation and the single window. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic is preventing us from organizing the seminar physically in this beautiful city of Odessa. Yes, we are not giving up, and together with our Ukrainian hosts, we are carrying out this seminar virtually during 3 consecutive mornings, as mentioned by Mr. Apostolov before. And I would like to thank you for that. I'd like to thank the hosts who are key supporters of UNECE FACT and UNECE in Ukraine, Mr. Platonov, Head of Delegation of Ukraine to UNECE FACT and first Vice President of ICC Ukraine. I'd like to thank you and your team for organizing this. I'd like to thank the speakers for preparing their presentations and for being willing to share them in this virtual online format. And finally, I'd like to thank all the participants for their interest and time. I saw before we had more than 50 connections right now, so that's an impressive number. And I understand there are participants from several countries: Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Lithuania, and our host Ukraine. I truly believe it's worth the time we are spending, and there are several reasons for that. First, the Odessa seminar on trade facilitation, they have a history, almost more than 10 years, I've been told, and today we are building on these 10 years and on your successes from the past. And second, dematerialization, the move from paper-based processes to digital processes, this is of crucial importance right now. Right now in the COVID-19 pandemic, but also right afterwards, after the pandemic. So right now, dematerialization can help reduce the person-to-person contact in international trade and transport. Social distancing is one of the key words in the COVID-19 pandemic. We have to reduce this person-to-person interaction in the supply chain, in the exchange of documents and information, and in subsequent controls. And the Odessa port community system already allows for exactly that. It allows the truck drivers to pass through the procedures in the port without leaving their cabin, without physically handing out documents. So you have been pioneering on a very timely issue, and my congratulations for that. Dematerialization will also be really important in the aftermath of the immediate health crisis, when hopefully we embark on an economic recovery. Seamless exchange across different modes of transport, they can play a key role there. Seamless exchange and trade facilitation can speed up the movement of goods and economic activity. It can help us nurture the much needed recovery. So in sum, in these difficult times, we should not give up on trade facilitation. Actually, just the opposite. We should embrace it. And in UNECE, we have embraced trade facilitation in the past, and so have you. During the 10-year history, the annual UNECE Odessa seminars, they have been associated with at least 3 successes, to which we in UNECE have contributed, and we are proud of that. First of all, the establishment of the port community system in Odessa, operated by a company PPL 33 to 35. It's actually named after the CFAC recommendations on the single window, recommendation 33, 34, and 35. Secondly, the establishment of the National Working Group on Trade Facilitation and Logistics, the predecessor of the Ukrainian National Trade Facilitation Committee. And thirdly, the Trade Facilitation Readiness Assessment and the work on the implementation of the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, the TFA, in Ukraine. So 3 successes we can all be proud of. And this year, the seminar will build on these successes, and it will focus on facilitating the exchange of electronic data across different transport modes. In so doing, you will focus again on the use of UNECE standards, reference data models and schemas. And I understand that there is with us representatives of several initiatives for digital corridors and the railway community. So in that connection and with our participants, we are well placed to identify concrete next steps for the development of electronic multimodal corridors. And in these concrete steps, we are also putting to life and creating on-the-ground impact of the UNECE tools. So to close, as the new director of UNECE Economic Cooperation and Trade Division, I'm proud of what the UNECE team and the trade facilitation team has achieved in the past with you. And I very much hope that we can build on the past and that we can even achieve more together with our partners and with you. So I thank the UNECE team, particularly Mr. Mario Apostolo, our regional advisor, for his efforts and for his dedication in making all of this happen. I thank our co-hosts, the speakers and the participants, and I hope that in the future I will get an opportunity to visit your wonderful city of Odessa, but today our interactions are in this online virtual format. So with this, I wish you fruitful deliberations. I thank you, and I give the floor back to Mario and the other speakers for this opening session.
Many thanks, Ms. Turk, for your welcoming remarks. And I would like to ask if Mr. Ivan Petrov, the Senior Deputy Secretary General of FIATA, is online to take the floor.
Mute, okay. Is it?
Yes, we can hear you. Please make your statement. Nice to be with. Nice that you are with us once again.
Could it be that the current speaker is muted? Could you unmute yourself?
But maybe we can have Mr.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Again, thank you very much for invitation to FIATA and to be present at this seminar, which is 10th in a row and organized by UNECE and also by the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian Association Ukazovnaya Trans, which is a member of FIATA. And we say that this topic today, multimodal transport data exchange and digital transport corridors, are very important topic for today, especially in COVID-19 crisis. And this is also the future of our business. And therefore, Fiat takes a lot of effort to put it forward and to make it working all over the world. Actually, we take always the region of Ukraine and connected countries around and the corridors which we were going to discuss today as a best practice example. And we also try to promote this good experience of Ukraine to other places in the world and to have from our global perspective. Just a few words about Fiat, which is the biggest non-governmental organization within the international logistics and freight forwarding industry, representing companies in 162 countries in the world and all regions. Objectives are to unite the freight forwarding industry, to represent and promote and protect the interests, and to familiarize trade and industry and the public at large with the services prepared by the freight forwarders. What is part of our digital strategy and what we have as a tool in this digital corridor transport thinking is the dual transport system Fiat bill of lading plus rail consignment node issue. Fiat bill of lading is negotiable Fiat multimodal transport bill of lading and is a carrier type of transport document designed by Fiat for the use of freight forwarders acting as multimodal transport operator. This transport document is related to the business, to the contract between the seller and buyer. And of course, as a double deck, there is transport documents that are involved, railway consignment notes. Fiat bill of lading is deemed by ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, to be in conformity with UNCTAD ICC rules for multimodal transport documents. And it can be used for multimodal transport document or unimodal transport document also. As a document of title, Fiat bill of lading can be represented to take delivery of the goods, of ownership of the goods. And therefore, it also been widely accepted by banks around the world for letter of credit transaction in conformity with UCP 600 of ICC. In order to promote this is paper story of the document, but we have a specially designed digital strategy from 2019, which has a strategic vision to address this issue, digitization processes. First of all, they should have been, the role of different stakeholders should be preserved. They should be ensuring real added value and to promote the service distribution. They should have a homogenization of tools and standards, and also ensure the quality or certification of the certification of the Fiat bill of lading should be neutral towards suppliers and work with big data, collect, analyze, and share industry facts. And objectives is to establish a centralized versus non-centralized or decentralized system, which is at the moment, since the National Association have power to distribute this. For the digitization process, it should be centralized. So to say, this is a lot of work to do, but we are taking into power. And also Fiat is moving to Geneva soon, and the decision is taken, and we shall keep close contact to all stakeholders based in Geneva, including UNECE on this issue. We very much support all this, what's happening in this today and next couple of days. And it's fully in conformity and compliance with what FIATA thinks. And we wish a good success on this seminar. And thank you so much for organizing it and having a very good best practice example for us to share through other bodies of FIATA. Thank you and good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petrov. It's very interesting to hear that we will be working physically very close once the sanitary crisis is over. When you move to Geneva, when FIATA moves to Geneva, this is interesting news. And thank you very much for the information on the FIATA Bill of Lading. It's an important piece of work that we will have to work together. Thank you very much. I would like to invite now Mr. Platonov to say some words on behalf of our partners and co-organizers of this seminar in Ukraine.
Добрый день, дамы и господа. Нам приятно приветствовать всех участников семинара. Хочу выразить благодарность госпоже Тюрк за то, что она описала уже наши задачи и историю нашего сотрудничества. Мы действительно, как государство Украины, заинтересованы в том, чтобы наш транспортный коридор, который связывает сегодня Балтийское, Черное море и Каспий, стал надежным инструментом для торговли между Европой и Азией. И пандемия сегодня как раз действительно продемонстрировала возможности тех компаний, которые не поддались панике, а используют те инструменты, которые СИФАКТ разрабатывал многие года. Это сегодня цифровая трансформация, и то, о чем сказал Иван Петров, старший вице-президент ФИАТА, это цифровая стратегия, и мы все сегодня консолидируемся вокруг этой темы. Самое главное, один из элементов, который мы достигли касательно пандемии в регионе Черного моря, портов украинских, это то, что кроме того, что цифровая экономика, цифровые инструменты могут противостоять коррупции и контрабанде, так же самое это стало инструментом санитарной гигиены. Практически мы спокойно, без каких-то всплесков продолжили работу. Ни один порт в Украине не остановился по причине как раз санитарных противоречий. И очень приятно, что у нас более 20 докладчиков, которые представляют сегодня как международные организации правительства Украины, наблюдают сейчас за процессом в интернет-режиме, и мы изменили чуть алгоритм, потому что те профильные министерства, которые заинтересованы в реализации этого проекта, они к нам присоединятся в третий день, когда мы будем вырабатывать рекомендации. Мы работаем в сопровождении Министерства иностранных дел Украины и надеемся на то, что опыт и рекомендации сегодня озвученные дадут нам возможность двинуться вперед. И действительно мы будем рады всех видеть в Одессе, когда снимут карантин, и мы надеемся, что летом это все-таки состоится этого года. Сегодняшний семинар – это первое мероприятие традиционной транспортной недели, торговли и транспорта, которое мы уже много лет проводим. А данный семинар десятилетний действительно хочется поднять уже в шампанском по этому поводу, насколько все настойчивые и как бы не менялись режимы в разных государствах, тем не менее вопрос доверия к цифровой трансформации остается актуальным. Главное, чтобы мы в жизни смогли изменять не только трансформировать бумагу в цифру, но и сами деловые процессы. Благодарю всех за внимание и передаю слово Марио. Спасибо.
Thank you very much for your statement, Mr. Platonov. Mr. Platonov is the head of delegation of Ukraine to UNECE Facts, so he is best placed to be our key partner in these seminars. And without much ado, I would like to start already with my
Mario, I believe that you've muted your microphone and your camera is not on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was just saying that we have already 77 participants, and this is very good. Thank you, Mr. Platonov. Mr. Platonov is the head of delegation of Ukraine to UNECE Effect, so he's well placed to know all these all the possible implications for UNECE Effect's work in Ukraine and the countries. Thank you very much for mentioning the idea to work on the UNECE Effect recommendations in the digital corridors in Eastern Europe. Just 1 second. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Nope. And now?
Yes.
Thank you. So we are all exploring these.
Марио, у вас еще видео выключено. Включите видео, пожалуйста.
Yeah. Спасибо. Thanks. So we will all be uploading our presentations from our site, and I would like to start with my brief presentation, which focuses on what we are doing and what we will be covering during these days. As we already mentioned, the Odessa seminars have already 10 years of history. We have always focused on practical solutions using EC and UNECE Effect tools. And these solutions are like the port community system called PPL 3335 in honor of UNECE Effect's single window recommendations. Also, we worked a lot with the working group on trade facilitation and logistics, which was established in relationship to the port community system project. We have worked on the implementation of the trade facilitation agreement of the WTO. So the latest topic, which may turn into our next good area of cooperation, is this idea of sharing data among documents and processes in different modes of transport on the basis of international, namely UNECE Effect standards and reference data model, which can be used by developers of practical solutions in the various areas of transport and various sectors. The technology is moving, like from the 1990s, it was UNECE Effect, which became the only global standard for electronic data interchange. Then XML, now then other tools for development. The trade and transport operators, operations are very complex, and there are various people and organizations who build on this complexity for their benefit. And the problem of using the same standards of harmonization and standardization of data exchange is not not easy, partly because of this reason. So currently, as it was already mentioned by all the speakers before, Mr. Petrov, Mrs. Turk, Mr. Platonov, the current challenge of the pandemics is calling for the establishment of more harmonized and standardized exchange of data, so that people can, so that the trade operations can be executed without many person-to-person contacts.
Sorry, Mario.
Yes?
Could you play your presentation full screen mode, please?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. So at the same time, the controls that are necessary, there is the introduction of non-tariff measures which are necessary for the control of the spread of the virus and for better exchange of information and goods. They have to be even reinforced. In all of this can be done better on the basis of standardized exchange of information among modes of transport. We have already spoken last time about the need to use the same standards for corridors such as the Black Sea, Baltic Sea corridor, which several participants in this seminar will present. In the Guam setting, we have representatives, high-level representatives from Azerbaijan who are involved in this work. We have had some work on data harmonization and modelization last year with Azerbaijan. So all this is, these are very positive stepping stones on which we can work further. And the idea, as we mentioned last year, is to use the CFACT semantic standards, reference data models, and other broader data models like the European Union's customs data model and other tools. The idea is to move from the physical contact when inspecting documents and information to a much less risky at the current stage exchange of information using electronic tools. We already mentioned, Madame Turk already mentioned a major achievement of the Odessa port community, that it allows for the clearance of goods in a truck without the truck driver going out of his cabin in the port. So the concept is to move like that. The information which is provided by business, it is available with business and is given through the freight forwarders to transporters and the regulatory agencies. That this information flows without any requirement for physical interaction. And these ideas have been on the table for years. Now the need is pressing to go further in this direction. The concept of data pipeline, which will be touched by several of our participants today, goes in the same direction. The idea is to move from exchange of documents to the exchange of the exchange of data. While if the data is harmonized, it can form part of a data set, a standard data set, which the trader provides in the beginning, and then it is spread among different stakeholders, authorized stakeholders along the chain. And if we take this approach from the perspective of a digital corridor, it is obvious that the information should flow from one mode of transport to the other without any impeding factors. Last year, we spoke about the harmonization of data along a corridor in documents accompanying goods. This is the major point. Documents that accompany goods are probably the first focus. Mr. Petrov was talking about the bill of lading. We are going to talk about the railway consignment note later today, and tomorrow we are going to discuss one particular example which has been quite advanced, the electronic electronic road consignment note, the ECMR, which will be the focus for tomorrow. And harmonized data, standardized data along the supply, along the pipeline will be used by both business and regulatory stakeholders. It is important to have this seamless flow of data along the pipeline. This slide, which exemplifies the idea, if there is a standard data set which can from which the data can flow into different documents. In this way, it is possible to address the major issue, which is the legal regimes accompanying each of those documents. If the data is flowing along the pipeline and it can enter the different documents, then the documents can follow the already established legal regimes. And the idea, which we already discussed, is to take a list of documents. This was the list we discussed with our Ukrainian partners. It is not complete, but it is also quite big. And harmonized data which is collected in those documents to the established international standards. As we put together this list of documents and data, it is possible to combine not only the transport side, the trade and transport interaction, this shipment information, but also the regulatory information, which is collected by customs and other regulatory agencies. After the seminar last year, what was done, we hired, on the basis of the recommendations of the seminar last year, we hired a consultant, Mr. Kagishu Ramadza, who we have invited him to participate in this seminar, but he was stuck by the COVID closure of borders during his vacation, so he can't participate. But what he did was to take a number of documents that we selected and map them to show where data in the different documents or processes is repeated. So we have this mapping now, which is a first step, which the chairperson of UNC Effect, Mrs. Probert, will present later today. She will present the results of this project. This is a first step from which one can build and go further with the establishment of, building more schemas and business requirement specifications, which can be used by developers to develop further standards to develop electronic documents, using probably the example of the ECMR, which will be presented and discussed tomorrow. Later today, we will discuss the railway, as I mentioned, and we can discuss the possible building of synergies among different projects, like in CIT, the railway organization dealing with the electronic railway consignment note, and what is done in UNC Effect. Mrs. Probert will present further the idea of using the UNC Effect multimodal transport reference data model and other reference data models exactly as a tool which can allow the development of solutions based on various technologies. And what is next? Again, I would suggest that the several initiatives that are represented today for work along digital corridors supported by the European Union, Guam and other organizations use the semantic standards of CFACT, the international standards. Well, as I mentioned several times, technology is evolving. Edifact, XML, now JSON APIs, and but the essential standards, the semantic standards, can remain the same and be used by the governments and the business community. So I would suggest that we prepare some recommendations that can be sent to major stakeholders to acknowledge this approach. Thank you very much. And I would like to invite now the next speaker, who is my colleague, Lance Thompson, who will share with you the latest developments in UNC FACT on the development of standards by UNC FACT.
Thank you very much, Mario. Shall I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yes, please. I will stop mine.
Okay.
If the organizers haven't stopped it yet. So I think you can do it now.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, and like me, probably
Perfect.
you have to do the full screen. Ah, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity to give a brief update about UNCFACT, the United Nations Center for Trade Facilitation Electronic Business. Thank you to Mr. Platonov, Mr. Fedorov, and our director, Director Turk, and Mario, of course. So UNCFACT, I think almost everybody on the call is familiar with. So just very quickly, UNCFACT is a global standardization organization working to create simple, transparent, and effective business processes for global business. And this is done through policy recommendations, guideline papers, like white papers, green papers, e-business standards, and libraries, directories, and code lists. And this is done through volunteer experts who are not paid for the work. There's over 1,000 experts and a number of experts from Ukraine, so thank you very much for that. And there are meetings on the various projects virtually every week. So, and since the COVID-19 pandemic and the confinements, there are actually more meetings than normal. All of the teams, all of the volunteer experts have a bit more time, so we're progressing the work a bit more. So we should have an explosion of deliverables for 2021, for our 2021 plenary. All of our work is based on what we call a buy, ship, pay model. And this is a harmonization process between all of the different links on the supply chain, so that any information that you're using for transport and logistics will be able to be recuperated from the commercial processes or reused for the regulatory procedures or for the financial procedures or sent back to the commercial procedures. So everything is aligned along the entire supply chain, which is very unique within international standards, as very often the standards will take a sectoral approach to one specific aspect and not look at the broader picture, whereas we're looking at the broader picture, or at least trying. So some of the recent developments that we have within UNCFACT, Mr. Platonov already mentioned the three key recommendations on single window within UNCFACT, 33, 34, 35. To that, we can also add 36 and 37. So maybe the name will have to change from PPL 3335 to 3337, or maybe 3339. So recommendation 33 on single window implementation, which was originally written in 2005, has just been updated. So we've gone through an entire updating process on the guidance for single window implementation. It's gone through public review, and it should be published during the summer, hopefully. We've also done a revision of recommendation 16 on UN low code, and specifically on the DMR processes, data maintenance request processes within UN low code, and recommendation 5 on Incoterms. And this was actually a request from the Ukrainian delegation to update our recommendation 5 so that it was synchronized with the International Chamber of Commerce document. And we did that in cooperation with the ICC. Last year, we published recommendation 37 on single submission portals. This is guidance which so the systems that are similar to single windows and can offer the same facilitation as single windows, but they don't necessarily respond to the base definition of recommendation 33 on single window. So this could be private sector driven solutions, or some port community systems, for example, can be considered single submission portals. They propose all of the same types of facilitations, but they don't correspond with the strict definition in Rec 33. And recommendation 43 on sustainable procurement. We've also developed a number of white papers. So these are guidance documents which are similar to recommendations, but perhaps not on the same level of political importance that we're really saying this is the way forward. So the white paper is saying this is a suggested way forward. And we've just completed, well, we completed in 2019 one on blockchain, and this has now been republished and updated from the 2019 version. This is available on our website as of today, and I'll show you how you can get to that. There's also a white paper on smart containers. So containers which can detect movement, doors opening, temperature variations, humidity variations. And we also have a standard which corresponds with this, which is published this year. And a white paper on core principles of single window. This will most likely become recommendation number 38. And this is, the principle behind this is that a single window, when it's established, is really a key component. It's a systemically important system. And so if that system doesn't function, if all of the information has to go through the single window to go to the different agencies or go back to the trader, if that system is not functioning, then there will be a major problem and disruption in trade. So this is a recommendation that's studying this. And then we have some standards work which is being developed on reference data models, and the chair will speak about this afterwards. Data pipeline, which Mario already touched upon, code management, ECMR, which we've developed as an international standard with a group of experts from around the world, and IMO EFAL as well. So some of the future directions, just on 3 different points. Procedurally, we should have a new bureau in the coming months, and we'll be working on the program of work for the next 2 years over the summer and in early autumn. So this will define the direction that our standards will be going over the next 2 years. Strategically, over the past few years, we've been working, of course, for more than a decade on document-centric data exchange. And over the past few years, we've been working more and more towards event-driven exchange of information. So this is taking just snippets of information, a little bit like the data pipeline that Mario had showed a bit earlier. Further building upon the buy, ship, pay model to have a more integrated model, to have all of the different procedures encompassed within our standard. And of course, providing a neutral hub for any standards organization that would like to bring their standards to our core component library to be harmonized, as I said earlier, along the entire international supply chain. So not just sectorally focused, but harmonizing with the rest of the supply chain. Some of the standards that are in development now, we're working on a larger paper on Internet of Things for trade facilitation. So not just smart containers, but other applications of Internet of Things. We're working on standardizing APIs, so application programming interfaces. If you're not familiar with this, this is the language that most web developers use in order to create the web pages that we all go to, and we test for information or get information. And so we're looking at standardizing our semantic standards towards APIs. We're working on a recommendation on trade information portals. So these are the portals that traders go to in order to check what is available in, what are the procedures which are required for crossing a border or for specific products. And we're working on track and trace. So we've already worked on track and trace a lot in the regulatory side, mostly in agriculture or textile and food products. Now we're also working on the operational side, not just the regulatory, but the operational side of track and trace. This project is just launched and there's a very big team working on this, so you're more than welcome to join. And just as I said, to show you how to find the information, so I don't know if you can see my mouse, but under outputs on the left-hand side, so when you go to our website, unec.org/cfact, under outputs, you'll see that there are guidance documents. It's after technical specification. And that guidance document, this is where you can find the white papers. So the white paper on blockchain, white paper on smart containers. And more importantly, we have a streamlined presentation of all of our standards, which is meant to facilitate finding all of the information. So when you click on this link, you come to another page which shows you a list of all of the standards. And then when you click on one of the names, for example, the multimodal transport towards the bottom of the page, you see everything that you need to implement the multimodal transport reference data model. So there's information here about what it is in the white paper or the executive guide. There's information on how to do it in the RDM reference data model guideline. Then you have the business requirement specification, which shows the business process. It's like the business process analysis of all of the steps linked to this standard. You have the XSD schema, which you can import into another system in order to reuse. And then you have a number of other deliverables, the structure report, UML diagram, or HTML index, which will allow you to understand the different aspects of the deliverable. And this is true for everything that you see on this page, or almost. Now, that's the end of my presentation. Basically, just to show you, we also have this collaborative UNCFACT environment. This is where we develop all of our projects. So if you're a member of UNCFACT, you can see the progress on trade information portals or on the core elements of core principles of single window. It is also, there's a public part of this as well. So you can see all of the projects which are under construction right now. If you want to see more, you need to become an expert, and I'm more than happy to help with that. There's also the Trade Facilitation Implementation Guide, targeting implementers to see how to implement the different standards and the tools, not just of UNCFACT, but of other organizations as well. I put it on one slide here where you can find everything and my contact details if you have any questions. And I should go to the last slide. I think I clicked on something, sorry. Sorry, family l'onglet. Family, sorry. So if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lance. We are, with these online seminars, we are aiming at short presentations and more discussions. I'm very happy to announce that we have 85 participants now, which is quite an impressive number. And without much ado, I would like to invite the chairperson of UNCFACT, who has been working for many years on the development of standards and now these UNCFACT reference data models. Hugh Probert, please upload your presentation.
Thank you, Mario. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you to Mario for this opportunity, and to our colleagues, Mr. Platonov and Mr. Fedorov from Ukraine and his colleagues, and also to our new director, Dirk, and also to Lance, my colleagues from UNCFACT. So I'd like to thank you, Lance, for your introduction. That's fantastic. I'm going to have two parts to this quick presentation. One of them is that I will be taking a little bit further in the semantic harmonization direction, the work of UNCFACT, and so I will introduce that. And then after that, I'm going to introduce the project that Kadisho Ramatsa conducted with Mario and the Ukraine team, just to give you some idea of what was done there. It's a research study, a small one, and it's something that, as Mario said, we might be able to build on. So let me move forward then. So the first thing I'd just like to bring together some of the input already received from Mario and from particularly Lance. Yes, we look at a very key area for UNCFACT is to look at the holistic view of the international supply chain. What you can see on this picture is that there is a whole range of business-to-business data in the top half, which is
Sue,
shared.
I'm not sure if anybody else, but I don't see your screen.
I don't see it either.
Oh,
So you have to share your screen, please.
No, I don't.
I have got a blue line all around my screen here, and I chose the share.
Share is in the lower part, in the middle. You have the share screen.
Yeah, I used that, and I have a blue line all around the outside, which shows that it's being shared. So I don't know where it went.
Gone with the wind, Sue.
Oh, okay. Because a blue line all the way around means it's sharing. So
Maybe you could redo the process.
Yeah. Okay.
Click
Thank you
stop
for
sharing and then share again.
Yeah. Okay. I should share the screen where the PowerPoint is being projected full screen, right?
But if you share your desktop, one of your two desktops, if you have two screens, and then when you launch the presentation, we'll see the presentation.
Okay, I'll choose.
It's best to share a desktop.
Okay, well, that's what I was doing. Okay, so let's see. I think there's a share button at the bottom, which I didn't
Yes.
do.
Yes, that's fine.
It's the share button. I
No,
do
it's-
apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, it's there. It's there.
Okay. So now, what do you see now?
Yeah, your presentation.
The
But
second
it's
slide
not
you
in
see.
full screen, right?
It's
Yeah,
not
well,
yet
you
in full
can-
screen. So if you launch the presentation,
Yeah, that's what I've done as well, but I can't even see where it is. Okay. Okay, I've
and now
launched.
at
fine.
the top, we're seeing the presenter screen. If you click at the top, display settings, you should be able to at the top on the left.
Oh, on the left.
Display settings,
Display settings, yeah.
and then swap presenter view and slide view,
Okay.
and then we'll see full screen.
Okay.
There we go,
Yes,
full screen.
that's fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I had it all arranged for you properly, but so you can see my slides now.
Yes, you're on the second slide now.
I am on the second slide. The first one was purely to introduce myself. So, okay. I was just explaining that at the top of this picture, we see all the business-to-business data, which is conducted during international supply chains between the different aspects of international trade. And this can involve many sectors and many different means of transport, modes of transport, types of payment, and different insurance contracts. So there's a lot involved in the top section, which is all what we call business-to-business exchange of information in order to conduct the business. What we have in a single window environment is that data needs to be, some of that data needs to be presented through the single window to agencies. And we have the customs aspect of it, which is at the moment, it is covered by the WCO data model. And we have the EU CDM, which is the European Customs Data Model, which I do a lot of work with in my day-to-day life. But there's also the other cross-border agencies, and a lot of those are based on UNECE FACT work, including the sanitary and phytosanitary certificates, etc. So this is the picture, and we have this interface, and I like to concentrate on the fact that if we really want to achieve really good digitization of our processes and our data, then we need to consider both sides of the single window. And this is the holistic view that we take from within the UNECE FACT work. We're very much aware that there are these different contracts, and I think I'm absolutely sure that I can say that UNECE FACT is the only organization in the world that fully considers the relationship between the trade contract for the exchange of for the buying and selling of physical goods and the transport contracts for the movement of those goods, which are, to take a simplistic view, the minimum view we should take is the house consignment level, which relates back to our colleague from FIATA, the freight forwarders, contracts between the people who buy and sell and the transport providers of the master level contracts, such as the maritime vessels and so on, where they consolidate cargo. So we take that whole view, and it's really important, and it's aligned to the same way that the WCO data model, for example, tackles some of these issues. So as Lance said, I'm only going to concentrate particularly on the semantic reference data models. And here I'd like to say that the important word here is reference. We do not say that everybody in the world has to reuse our reference data models for their actual work. And we know that there are hundreds of very important protocols, conventions, and other regulatory aspects that have to be taken into consideration. What we do say from UNC Fact is that if our semantic reference data models can be taken into consideration, they can provide the ability to be able to understand alignments between the different systems, regulations, and implementations. So as Lana said, they are subsets of the core component library. Each one of the reference data models covers a particular scope of business processes. And I don't really go into too much trouble, but it's all a basic structure for reuse for implementing in the different areas. We have a family of international trade reference data models. The buy, ship, pay covers the whole scenario I've just described. The supply chain reference data model covers the buying and selling and the materials management of goods, so dispatch advices, etc. This is how the buyers and sellers exchange data in between each other. And then the multimodal transport reference data model covers all of the information that needs to be exchanged, no matter what mode you're in or what level of the transport contract you are operating at a particular time. And on the right-hand side is our alignment project, which is a new project where we want to focus on understanding where the regulatory data is within the business-to-business data and understanding how that can be linked to the regulatory regulations that apply in international trade. So one of the key things that's really important when you try to build a reference data model family, as we have, and many years ago, we realized that you have to put semantic anchors in place. It's no good if you don't have a single definition, for example, of a trade delivery or shipment between buyer and seller compared to a consignment, which is a transport contract between someone buying transport services and someone providing transport services. This is an absolutely critical difference, and we have to have the distinction of I call semantic anchors put in place so that everything that we then define around these key definitions, and these are not the only ones, but they're the very important ones, then everything builds into something that can be used as a reference model without any ambiguities or problems. Now, let me move on to the project overview. This was a small research project, as I introduced. Kajisho Ramatsa is a very experienced guy from originally from South Africa Customs. He's also worked on the EU customs data model through the company that he works for in Germany now. He is stuck in South Africa at the moment, but hopefully he will start work next week remotely, as we all are. But he also has been picking up on the UNC Fact semantics for some time now, and I was able to help and monitor and guide him through this project, so I'm able to tell you about it. Basically, it was using the reference data model as reference so that we could see where the documents that you see below fitted into the reference data model. And by doing that, we were able to see commonalities and investigate some of those interesting aspects. The ETIR is based on the reference on the WCO data model. So that was an interesting exercise which can be fed into our regulatory reference data model that we'll be working on this year. Cross-border management reference data model, and the CIM and SMGS, we know how much work is already being done in these areas. It's all incredibly important, and we recognize all of that, but we just wanted to see how the data might align with, for example, the ECMR, which is a a project which has been done in conjunction with UNECE Transport Division road section, and also it's also done in conjunction with the IRU. The implementation of specific transport documents does need to reflect the needs and requirements of the particular modality, but we need to be able to talk about how we can link data from single modal to intermodal, multimodal, and synchromodal. And synchromodal, in my definition, is when a transport mode has to be changed because of immediate circumstances as opposed to a planned schedule. We need to be able to support different syntaxes, and I think Mario introduced that concept. And the usage of signatures and stamps is important, but wasn't part of this small project. But that needs to be considered, and it's recognized as such. And the single submission approach is really based on the data pipeline type approach and the single window picture that I showed earlier. So it's an overall approach. So these were the the 7 documents that were mapped to the reference data models to see how much we could achieve we were testing our reference data models, let's be honest. This is a good opportunity for us to do that from these different aspects. And the 3 that I'm concentrating on are the top 3 there. I'm going to show you a little picture of the overall results. But the notes underneath explain the background to these 2, the ETIR and the CIM SGMS, which obviously are coming from a body of work, which is very important and one that we need to base our work around. So the first one here is the CIM's SGMS, and this is where we have referenced back to the multimodal reference model, the data that we found in the CIM SGMS. This work may need to be taken on further. It is an initial study, a short study, but it gives an idea. What's important here, and in the next 2 slides, is that what you're seeing is the same semantics being reused across the 3 documents I'm going to show you. So this is the first one. The second one is the ETIR. And you can see, if you have more time to study, and we can share this information, Mario, I'm sure, you can see that the same semantics are being used here, and we can harmonize across them in understanding the references that we found. And then the last one, the ECMR, is the published one. That is an official UNECE Effect standard, as Lance mentioned. And this, again, is, you can see very easily when you look at these common names, common semantic structures, that they are the same information in all of these 3 cases. The same was true of the other documents, and I just wanted to give you a brief intro to the work and the results of that project, which, as I say, is a small study, which is a contribution maybe to future work. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much, Sue.
I stop share. I can do that bit correctly. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So this was one of the essential points of our the program of our seminar, to see how the standards of UNECE Effect can be used further for the development of documents in different modes of transport, and how to use the different technologies which Sue just mentioned. Lance already showed how the information on the standards has been reorganized to be made much more user-friendly, so people can use it much more easily. Thank you very much, both Sue and Lance, and I hope we can continue with this discussion further. Now I would like to invite our colleague from our transport division, Francesco Dionori, for a brief presentation as he on the railway transport. We together with Mr. Eric Eftimov will be talking more about the electronic side of the work, but Mr. Dionori will speak more, I believe, on the work on the Unified Railway Law. Well, Francesco, please.
Thank you for
Спасибо. И просьба всегда включать видео, как это сделал Франческо. Благодарю.
second. I will just try and share my screen, which should be this one. Oh, why is it not working? I don't know if you can see it on screen now. I will put it on.
Yes.
Full presentation mode. Okay, oops. Was a bit too much. Just 1 second. Okay.
Francesco, we see it as the
present.
do display setting. You can swap it. There you go.
Swap.
There you go. That should be better now. I hope everyone can see the full screen.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Mario, of course, for introducing me, and thank you for everyone, and of course to the organizers for allowing me a short presentation today. I will try and keep it very short. I don't want to steal Eric's time who's straight after me as well. It is, of course, always a pleasure to participate in this seminar, and I can't say I've participated in all 10 of the seminars that have been over the past 10 years, but I think I've participated in quite a few. So it's a shame not to be able to see you all in person, but on the other hand, it's good to see you on the screen as well. So I'm thankful of that possibility as well. So as Mario said, I'd just like to say a few words, if I may, on UNECE's role in the railways. I will do a quick introduction on what the transport division does. Some of you have already seen this before in previous presentations, so I apologize if that's the case. But as you know, the work of the transport division is carried out through the Inland Transport Committee, which covers all inland transport modes of transport, of course, road, railways, inland waterways, intermodal transport, and of course the transport of dangerous goods. We have now 59 inland transport related legal instruments that are administered within the division. You see some of the key symbols that there are here on screen in terms of what we do, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of road signs, dangerous goods, the tier, vehicle regulations, etc. Obviously, we have interventions tomorrow from my colleagues in the road section who will be discussing, for example, what Sue mentioned earlier on the E-tier and on the ECMR, which we're carrying out in collaboration with the trade division. So I won't go into any of those. I wouldn't want to steal the thunder of the colleagues, and they'll be more than happy to provide you much more details on that tomorrow. So just a quick overview for those who don't know, there are a number of legal instruments and legal agreements that are the basis of the work that we do at a multimodal level in terms of road transport. And these are on screen. I won't go through them in detail, but of course the main ones that relate to railways are the ones in bold, which I hope you can see the bold. The European Agreement on Main International Railway Lines, the AGC, and the European Agreement on Important International Combined Transport Lines and Related Installations, the AGTC. Here is just a visual representation of the network as it is at the moment, and how it extends within the ECE region, the European part of the ECE region, of course, and how it extends also further east towards countries in our sister regional commission in ESCAP. Part of this work and part of this framework and these infrastructure agreements are key infrastructure parameters and setting of these key infrastructure parameters to enable harmonization of the network and really to facilitate as much as possible, given the intrinsic differences that they are in infrastructure across the various borders, let's say. And these are as much as possible harmonized across the network, and there is a commitment of people of member states, who are contracting parties to these agreements to harmonize as much as possible going forward. We facilitate this process by an online tool that we have, which is an inventory of standards, which allows you to choose from A to B from origin A to destination B, to understand the various infrastructure parameters, and then really gauge how the network is developing and how really what the minimum parameters are in terms of getting between those two destinations. So Mario kindly introduced a couple of words on unified railway law. If I may say a few things more on that. We've heard also from Sue that there are two real regimes in the railways which are separate and which create some difficulties when it comes to crossing the borders of those two legal regimes. So what ECE has been doing, what member states have been doing at ECE rather than ECE, has been trying to unify these provisions through the creation of one contract of carriage, one single consignment node based on the CMS-MGS consignment node, which I'm sure Eric will talk about later on, and also importantly, one liability regime, with really the aim of facilitating international transport of goods and particularly containers on the basis of a single contract of carriage. This work is coming towards completion. We have draft legal text, which is being negotiated at its final stage, and we hope that very soon we'll be able to work towards something which focuses on contract of carriage, with then as a first stage, and then potentially moving on to other aspects of harmonization which need to be done, for example, in rolling stock or infrastructure use or things in the general framework of the railway law. Incidentally, one more recent aspect of this analysis is also considering how to introduce provisions into the draft legal text that we have in relation to making this contract of carriage negotiable. In other words, allowing for it to be used for loans or for bank credits going forward. This is still very much at early stages. I'm happy that also Eric has been involved in these discussions as well. We had a recent meeting on this, specifically on this subject, and seeing how to understand it going forward. But these are railway specific solutions, and so it's good to hear that there are discussions going on in parallel in terms at a multimodal level going forward. So that's unified railway law. Just a quick word on some other key activities which are also relevant, I think, for discussions today. The Working Party on Rail Transport is really the focus of rail activities, where we look at rail security, we look at financing, innovation, and through innovation also the digitalization of electronic documents is one of the key aspects. Of course, east-west transport, safety and productivity, a general review of the market and looking at statistics. On the right of the screen, if you can see it behind our faces, there are some of the publications that we've done recently that we've completed, one on innovation, one on railway reform, and most recently based on our seminar we held in November of 2019, looking at competitiveness in the rail sector. This year in November, and I hope that we will be out of confinement by November. This house arrest is fun if you have a family, but it's starting to get old. We will be looking at a workshop on, specifically having a workshop on international passenger transport, and obviously looking at how this now in this new normal, how this will work going forward. Just briefly also in the other Working Party 24 on intermodal transport and logistics, we have a number of interesting activities going on which could be of relevance here today. Again, the role of digitalization is on screen. Had a very interesting forum in October of last year looking at connectivity issues, and one of the key areas was the digitalization aspects of intermodal transport. The CTU code, which is very much in relation to helping people to pack containers so that people do not get injured, maybe less of an interest today, but important nonetheless. And some other work on promoting intermodal transport and also logistics reports focused on Central Asian countries. We have done two recently, one on Kazakhstan and one on Kyrgyzstan. So a final slide, if I may, just on some key challenges which are very relevant to discussions today. So we've already spoken about digitalization of transport documents in the sector and beyond. I've added them beyond because, as I said, the discussions at a multimodal level are very interesting and have a lot of potential. Of course, the railways is still very much paper-based, and so a harmonized approach to electronic transfer of data is very much needed. It has a long way to go, but I think it's something that's in the process, and we can learn, as Sue has said, from systems which are already in place, such as ECMR. But to do this, there needs to be a lot of cross-border coordination in terms of data exchange. I think this is one of the key areas of discussion today. So it also requires stakeholders to come together, as we're doing today. There are already some good international examples on overcoming these national obstacles. So, for example, in relation to what's going on in the EU with the TAF, TSIs, which is being rolled into COTIF, but also there's lots of activities in SMGS. But again, these are for Eric to talk about. I don't want to steal his thunder. And national activities in terms of developing an integrated transport system across all modes. This can further facilitate better data exchange. In all of this, of course, the SDGs are fundamental, and we shouldn't forget these aspects, and in relation to the work that's also going on in terms of climate change and the promotion of intermodal transport. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. I have not put my email on screen, but I'm sure many of you already have my email. Feel free to ask any questions now, send me any questions by email that you would like. I will be around at least for this morning, and I hope to be able to connect also tomorrow morning when my colleagues are speaking. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a juggling act with this house arrest. Thank you very much to all, and good luck with the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Francesco. It's a very interesting angle that you presented. Well, railway is getting more and more attention now because in this particular crisis, because it seems to be safer than other modes in terms of reducing person-to-person contact, and people are looking at certain things on harmonization, including the harmonization and standardization of data exchange, which they hadn't solved before. Now it's important to look at it under this particular circumstances now.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I would like to call if Eric Eftimov is on board to join us. Ah, yes, he is there.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. Nice to have
everyone.
you with us, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Mario. Thank you to UNECE, also our colleague Francesco. And I'm very happy to see everyone safe and healthy. Thank you for organizing this seminar. I would like to share also my screen with you. Can you see it?
Yes, very much.
So, as discussed with Mario, I would like to present shortly to the seminar on train transport facilitation, the data harmonization and the exchange of consignment note data in multimodal approach and context, especially started by the point of Francesco that in rail we have a dual legal regime. Unfortunately, in differences to road and air, but also for maritime transport, rail is living on the land bridge between Europe and Asia still in a dual legal system. And I will explain further on why this is a handicap for rail on Eurasian rail transport for goods and services. We have to overcome the interlink between SIM COTIF from one side and SMGS from the other side. And this is now organized through the common consignment note, which I would like to present to you. But further to that, we have to develop a single transport contract, which is now working on in the framework of UNECE. The new task, which we discussed, as already Francesco said last week, with UNCITRAL, is the thinking how to develop the digital information also in the sense of title of rights, because this should be also, in our understanding, a better possibility to receive more investment and secure rights of the banks which invest a lot in rail transport, in transport of goods. I'm very open for all discussions and questions. Here just a short introduction in the topic already started by Sue as well, how we can start to reflect for full-fledged of data exchange in a multimodal context. A very classical approach of CIT for many years is to prepare harmonized paper documentation. This was the task, the very first task of the CIT, created more than 118 years of our grandfathers to harmonize the information through single documentation, the consignment note for rail. This was also achieved based on trade layout key of UNCTAD for rail as well, in the sense of COTIF SIM SMGS. Here on the screen, a print screenshot of the consignment note, which can be also filled in via PDF created. This is very basic approach of using, introducing the paper documentation. But this is important from the development perspective of documentation and exchange of information, because from the legal point of view, SIM COTIF, but also SMGS, is based on the sense how functional equivalence of transport documentation can be further developed through data exchange. And this is how the international conventions for rail reflect the possibility of data exchange in the sense of paper. When we started the project some 10 years ago with OECD, this is the organization based in Warsaw, in charge of management of the documentation for SMGS area in the dual legal regime for rail. We overcome the differences in documentation, harmonizing all information which are necessary for the client to send information to the contractual carrier, covering all necessary information for the transport contract. As you already start to reflect, this is very important to have the interface between contract of selling and buying goods and the contract of carriage, where on the interface we receive the real data from the client, the consignor, and there we can capture all necessary information for the internal relation organized by the contractual carrier as a party of the contract of carriage. And then internally, we wish to use the same information like subsets, which can be distributed to further participants to this transportation. Normally, the model of transportation for rail is a successive carriers, and also we have very important legal relationship to infrastructure, because on Eurasian transportation on the land bridge, we have a well-developed railway infrastructure. Subset should be also provided to customs. This is the necessity of the customs transit declaration. Also, now very important, from this set of information, common data, we have to provide information also to banks as investors to organizing the railway carriage. So the philosophy of the common consignment note is a common data set, which is organized and managed by the contractual carrier. The contractual carrier can be in a multimodal contract and environment road carrier or rail carrier, and then the contractual carrier, the leading railway undertaking in our case, can deliver various subsets with standardized data to other participants in the internal organization of the rail or multimodal carriage. What it means. I will switch further to our legal background for electronic consignment note, which is also provided through the handbook for using common consignment note in paper, but now we are very focused on preparing the functional, legal and technical specifications for the electronic consignment note. The technical specifications are developed by Rail Data, which is a branch of the UIC, a sister organization of CIT, and there we can support our colleagues for preparing the full-fledged of technical specifications. But the task of the CIT is in preparing, based on the legal background, preparing the functional and legal specifications. What it means, the functional specifications is the content from one side, and also the way how this data should be exchanged with the various participants. And the environment which is in rail is with the various participants, already mentioned infrastructure, also wagon keeper, also customs, banks. So it should be cover the full environment of participants to the legal environment of rail, but not only. We are very interested. That's why, thanks to Mario and the trade division and also the transport division of the UNECE, we can participate to the multimodal projects of UNC Effect for the various transport modes, because in our understanding, absolutely, we support the statement of Director Mrs. Tuke that the new 21st century approach should be the global logistic chain, which are absolutely multimodal. So in our small work, we are ready to cooperate with you, preparing multimodal functional and legal specifications. Why the functional and legal specifications are so important for us? From one side, looking on the necessity to have the same standards for SMGS area and for CM area, and then especially looking also in the legal specifications, because there we have also the necessity to provide AD contracts. AD contracts based on two different principles, but this is too much details. I would like to discuss afterwards, probably in a, if it will be outcome of this seminar expert group, where we have to concentrate our understanding from one side to the functional equivalent in COTIF SIM area and the contractual organization of the electronic data exchange in the SMGS area, and how to bridge these two main principles. We have to bridge also the differences in data exchange. From one side, in our area, we have XML, Edifact is in SMGS. This is also, in our understanding, no big problem. We can have converter between them. We already start to reflect, actually, at the beginning of the year, based on the full-fledged of functional, legal and technical specifications in a document which was prepared by CIT and OSGD, published on web site of OSGD and CIT, 1st of July 2019. It's a full-fledged of functionalities in the triage of the electronic consignment note for rail transport using electronic data exchange. And absolutely at the beginning of the year, we start to prepare pilots just to look how we can work in this environment using data exchange with sufficient security to all participants with the subsets which I already mentioned. But unfortunately, we have to postpone these pilots due to COVID-19 virus pandemic. And we hope very much, supported by the international, strong international organizations, that after this lockdown, hopefully at the beginning of summer, we can start once again piloting using the electronic data exchange. And the idea was to involve the two big railway undertaking, from one side the Russian railways and from the other side the German railways, and then look on all elements and segments, how it should be delivered by the functionalities and organizing seamless data exchange in this context. So once again, summing up, we are very interested to cooperate with you. We are very interested also to cooperate with the further authorities which are involved in this pilots, which we would like to organize. And additional question which I would like to discuss with you is not only the consignment note or transport data exchange, but also the accompanying documents. This is a lot of additional documents which are very specific in transport environment, but not only, also they comes once from the trade contract, phytosanitarian certificates, health certificates, document of origin, and so on. All these documents for the moment, unfortunately, are only in paper. So my point is that we cannot just overcome our difficulties and succeed to provide electronic data exchange only based on the transport documents. We have to think in electronic digital environment. In this case, especially putting emphasis to the additional documents accompanying the goods. And this should be also very important also for dangerous goods, for example, waste shipments internationally and so on. So here we have very strong interest how to further digitalize the whole environment for transport in a multimodal approach. For further questions or necessity, I'm on your disposal with phone and email information. Thank you very much. Also, additional information you can find on the homepage of the CIT, which you can see here. Thank you once again, and happy to have your questions.
Thank you very much, Eric. We are very happy to have you here because we are starting now with you this discussion on building synergies with other organizations. And I was very happy to hear all your points about the possible cooperation with the multimodal transport reference data model of CFAC, etc. All your concrete points about building on the work on reference data models, subsets, etc. Like you were mentioning just now, one of the key issues that we are facing now, like the technology is becoming more and more technical. You were talking about Edifact and then XML. Edifact already it was difficult, but they managed to build a global standard for XML. We've been looking at this discussion for 20 years. It was much more difficult to build a common standard. And now there is new technology coming. Jason, my colleague Lance mentioned the JSON application programming interfaces. And there it is even more technical, difficult for the layman to understand. So the importance of the underlying standards, the use of the core components and semantic definitions of data is even more important. So your call for more cooperation is, I think, very, very well accepted. So now we are opening a 20 minutes discussion before the break. And I hope that people will look into building synergies and what recommendations can we take out of what we're discussing. So please, who wants to pick to take the floor? There is the chat.
Sorry, Mario, if you allow me just to finish
please.
my thinking on that. Absolutely with you, we have stronger technical influence to the transport on global level, to trade as well. And here I think we have to reflect very carefully the question of standards as well. How we can have one single standard and how a standard can be introduced to a multimodal environment as well. And this is very challenging. We have different codes which in different transport modes are used. And I think UNECE Trade and Transport Division is a proper platform where we can really reflect on standards as well, besides functionalities coming from the transport documentation and the data mapping, as Sue already mentioned as well. So my additional element to further discussions, standards, technical standards, standardization of goods and services as well.
So please use the raise your hand function to call for your attention.
Марио, я поднял руку, Александр Федоров, но поднял руку не для того, чтобы задать вопрос, а просто показать, что в нижней правой части у нас есть кнопка «Реакция» и есть два значка «Поднять руку» или сказать, что было хорошо. В то же время есть еще чат, есть отдельная кнопочка «Чат», где можно в чате задавать свои вопросы во время каждой презентации, для того, чтобы мы в конце сессии могли эти вопросы озвучить каждому из присутствующих. Сейчас прямо вот, если возникли вопросы к нашим уважаемым спикерам, начиная от господина Марио Апостолова, Сью Проберт, Ланса Томпсона, люди, которые действительно специалисты в своем деле и не один десяток лет работают в этой сфере. Они могут разъяснить те вопросы, которые появились, или же всегда рады в течение вот этих дней, пока они или мы будем на связи. Мы готовы принимать эти вопросы, обработать и в конце, возможно, дать даже сводный перечень таких ответов. Благодарю вас.
Александр Ильич, Сью поднял руку.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mario. I just wanted to add something I hadn't had a chance to mention in a short presentation, and that links to what Eric was saying just now to us, and that is that the reference data models include a complete reference to the UN layout key and to the boxes, particularly of the key legal instruments. So we do have, for example, CIM references, not SGMS, but at least we have a very good start there, which will help with the digitization linking to the regulatory paper documents. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Видишь, как сзади табличка, надо научиться тоже сзади вести табличку. Вот, Сью про.
Somebody else?
Hans Ruck поднял руку.
Hans Ruck, please.
Yes, I try to. I'm online now, isn't it? But not in the picture, but it doesn't matter. I'm very impressed about the things that's going on the rail these days. We always focus on PCS more on the sea freight, on the air freight, and of course, you know, the Silk Route is coming over us from the Far East, and it's good to listen and to see and to learn about the standards, the different standards. I know for many, many years already that there are standards on rail, there are standards on the inland traffic, especially when we talk road and barge traffic, and also on the seaside. And we see that there's a lack in harmonization, and especially the harmonization between the various, let's say, modes of transport and the data around it. That should be a topic as well. Looking to, for instance, dangerous cargo. When you look at the dangerous cargo, the IMO and UN nomenclature for the sea freight and the air freight is different from the rail. Where you can harmonize that, that might be might make life much easier.
Thank you.
Mario speed.
Somebody else?
No flags, no hands. Нет поднятых рук. Подтверждение тому, что презентации были достаточно.
Harmonization between the various modes of transport nomenclature, especially on dangerous cargo. There's so much difference between the dangerous cargo notifications and declarations on rail and on sea freight. And when you can harmonize those processes to have one total set of harmonized data, that should be great, I think, for the whole traffic, the whole transport and logistics.
Yes, thanks. This is a key part of the work, if I understand it correctly, your question, on having the same naming and definition rules for different documents. And UNECE Effect is kind of unique in that sense that it provides the naming rules. So like I would call for Sue and Lance, if they are on board, to mention something. If there is, what are the plans to work on the dangerous cargo messages and information exchange, and also, as you mentioned, the railways. If the participants from like Francesco and Eric can mention something on that.
Mario, this is Lance. We did have a very active team that worked on the ECMR standard within UNECE Effect, and they wanted to work on what they were calling ECMR Plus. It's not really an appropriate name, but what they meant was working on all of the other types of declarations and processes that need to be declared from the road transport point of view. So we'll come up with another name, but for them, it's an ECMR plus. They're going to build on the ECMR to cover all of the other processes they need to do. And within that, there is a very large aspect of dangerous goods and the movement of dangerous goods. And as we would try to work on it within UNECE Effect, of course, we'd be trying to look at it from a multimodal perspective, and hopefully in close collaboration with the team in UNECE Transport under Francesco. And we've already started some discussions with that team internally, and the team that they've set up in France working on that. Maybe Francesco has a few more words on that. So hopefully we can come up with a multimodal approach and a standard for that.
Yes, Lance, not only a standard, but also harmonization. That's a very important aspect as well.
Of course. So as we would try to do it within UNECE Effect, there'd be integrating it into our buy ship pay model and not trying to look at it from a sectoral focus only, because their main interest, the group that wants to launch it, is road transport. But we would try to open it up to the multimodal approach. And I think Sue will say a bit more about the link between ECMR and multimodal transport reference data model tomorrow, so that it does cover all modes of transport and not just the road consignment. And of course, working with the transport team in UNECE for that.
Yes, maybe our colleague Rudy Hemeles, who's speaking tomorrow, will also be able to provide some information on this topic. as he's been leading that possibility of an extended project for ECMR. But what I showed you on those 3 small slides of mine is that each of the modal requirements can be mapped onto a common reference, which uses the same definitions and names for anything that is common between the different modes or sectors. And I think that's answering your question, Hans. That is the harmonization aspect of the work. Thank you.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, you see difference over there. And especially when you talk about dangerous cargo, it's very dangerous to have different definitions for the same kind of data value.
If I can just jump in, Mario, sorry, just to quickly build on what Lance has said. I agree with what's been said in terms of coordination or organization. I think the best people to discuss that really are colleagues who are dealing with CMR, which is not me, unfortunately, who will be speaking tomorrow. And also I can relay the point on dangerous goods back to colleagues because it's not actually in my section. It is in another section of the transport division. But I'm happy to confirm that there is integration in terms of the dangerous goods work, because it is done across the modes of transport, and actually it's also done in very close cooperation with colleagues in ICAO and in IMO as well, but they'll be better placed to really answer that.
Thank you, Francesco. One thing I wanted to point out at this particular moment is that the link between the overall discussion about the available tools and standards and the concrete work, like in the Eastern Partnership, the Eurasian Transport Links, etc., on the link to the practical projects. And during the preparation of this seminar, something came up which has been discussed for many years. Like when there are these big projects financed with resources from big organizations, there should be more attention to how the actual implementers of concrete solutions projects, how they reflect the international standards. Maybe there should be more organizational work so that when a project on digital corridor is developed in the Eastern Partnership, the Eurasian Economic Union, or in the Guam setting, so that even the donors, those who finance those projects, pay attention to the fact that there are international global standards that should be taken into account when implementers develop their own solutions. I think this will be much more rational approach to the use of international standards. And again, like, are there any more questions this part of this discussion? And I would also encourage the participants from the East European countries and like Ukraine, Belarus, Lithuania, Azerbaijan, who are with us to mention what their positions are on what we have heard by now.
Мария, можно краткие комментарии? Меня не слышат. Мария, вы меня слышите?
Да, пожалуйста.
Спасибо, господин Платонов. Да, пожалуйста, комментарий. И дальше Ланс Томпсон поднимал руку. Он ждет тоже или задать вопрос, или прокомментировать. Благодарю.
Я кратко хочу проинформировать, что как раз в рамках Организации сотрудничества железных дорог ведется работа по терминологии, связанных с обменными данными и с опасными грузами, потому что китайская железная дорога вышла с инициативой рассмотреть возможность применения товаросопроводительных документов как морского конносамента. Это, конечно, смешанные понятия такие, но для того, чтобы действительно во всех видах транспорта было одно понимание записи, полей и возможности потом этого всего визуализирования. Спасибо большое.
Mario, if I could
Yes,
perhaps react
please,
as well,
Lance.
as I had raised my hand. I completely agree with what Mr. Platonov has just said, but I wanted to echo the comment that you were making, because very often in projects that are funded by the European Union or other big agencies, there's a misunderstanding that they have to create something new, that they have to create a new message that's completely independent from anything that came before. And it's a misconception, I believe, and this might be one of the recommendations that could come out of this conference, that we recommend that all of these large types of projects look at international standards and how to best adapt these to the situations that they're presenting, instead of creating another standard, which afterwards we'll need to align or harmonize with. So I think that's an important point. I'm not saying that UNCFACT has the answer for absolutely everything. I'd like to think that we do, but perhaps we don't. But when somebody is doing one of these projects, they should try to look at what are the international standards that exist and how could they best be applied to the situation that they are looking at, instead of creating something new. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. And
Yes.
yes, again,
If I may
Sue
just,
wants to take the floor.
Mario, may I just add one thing? I couldn't agree more. In fact, Lance and I both have experience in the past of a European project which accused the project work of being non-innovative because it reused international standards. And I think this is something that we definitely need to try and overcome as far as we can, because that is what will enable us to achieve the goals that we've been describing this morning. Is to also, the other thing I wanted to mention was that it's a two-way street. So if more projects were able to try and reuse the underlying semantics that we produce in UNCFACT, it would help us, because they might be able to contribute things that would make it even better. So that would be a much better way forward than people inventing their own. Thank you, Lance, for that comment.
Any comments from the floor and or questions? We still have
perhaps me,
5 more minutes.
Yeah, it's me. Thank you very much, Lance and Sue, for your interventions. And perhaps right you are that you mentioned it is better to consult or to use international standards and already developments that have been made by UNCFACT and other international organizations dealing with international standards and sets. And perhaps it would be a good task for everybody of us who is working within the UNCFACT to draft an executive guide for such organizations, how to start such kind of projects, to start with the international standards that has already been implemented within the everyday life, especially within the semantics and especially with the terminology, because we can find many definitions for the same thing in different organizations and in different contracting parties to the conventions. So perhaps it's a good time to start the semantic interoperability of the definitions and to define certainly the precise events, the precise things and items, especially within the buy, ship, pay model, especially related to international trade, because it is very, very useful and it is very sensitive for the contracting parties, for consignees and consignors, and for all supply chain stakeholders to understand in the same manner. This is just like a consignment, this is just like an item within the consignment, and this is just like other related things that Sue earlier in this morning already demonstrated and showed during her presentation, because different stakeholders look at the different items from their relevant points of view, the consignment, the cargo, the goods, or something like that, and just a cargo or consignment for a truck driver. He doesn't know about the inner side of what is in the box, and the essential thing, who packed the box. This is the thing for customs officials, and what is within the box when it will be cleared by the customs authorities later, at a later stage, but not during the supply chain, only for security reasons. Thank you very much. Excuse me for my intervention.
No, thank you very much. We are now approaching 11 o'clock when we have announced a small coffee break. Is there any more urgent question?
Yes, Sue Robert has her
hand,
hand
I think.
raised.
Sorry? Somebody else?
Robert has her hand raised.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Sue. Sue, you are muted.
I had not lowered my hand, apologies. I had not raised it second time, no.
Thank you. Anybody else? And like in the afternoon, we'll have more presentations on behalf of these projects that are being developed with support from the international community. And we will raise this question once again, how these link to the international standards so that there is more efficient use of resources in developing solutions for data exchange and digital corridors. So probably we can stop now. If like we have envisaged half an hour break, but
before I stop, I have a
yes, please.
Comment. I'm Abdi Shakur from Somalia, and Officer Custom and Excise Minister of Finance, Somalia. I have comments related that the harmonization. My comment is many countries in Africa, they don't make that harmonization. For example, in our customs, when they are working, for example, when they receive a manifest, I mean the documents, we receive a documents when they arrive a ship in the ports. For example, we didn't get documents before that time. Also, many African countries and many African customs, it is same like that. So we have some problems, for example, policy problems and other civil war problems like that. But still, we need to get some technologies help how we are working to make that home rights in all African countries, like the port countries. For example, we have many ports in Somalia. I mean, 7 ports or like that, more than. We have borders in Kenya, Ethiopia, Djibouti. For example, Ethiopia, they don't have a port, so they use our ports, like different ports in my country. But we didn't get information that related goods need to Ethiopia before the shipping arrive our ports. So when the shipping come, our port customs, that time we get documents. So still, and we need to update our systems in all African countries. That's my comment. Maybe there some of my friends from another countries in Africa.
Thank you very much. It's a very pertinent question, because we are looking at the situation in Europe, broader Europe, where standards have been developing for many, many years, at least since the Second World War. But if you look at FIATA, for example, that goes much before the Second World War. And there are these standards for different modes of transport. In Africa, well, we are very honored to have a participant from Somalia. And we see that the idea is that like in the ports, you use the standards coming from the International Maritime Organization. But then further, you rightly pointed out, there is this point that Ethiopia is now landlocked. So the goods that come by sea for Ethiopia through ports in Somalia, let's say, or other neighboring countries, they have to cross and they have to go by land. So one of the interesting points is how this experience that we are having basically in these regions like Eastern, Western Europe, how this can be used in other regions, how the documents and data for transporting goods by rail, by road, can be harmonized in other regions like Africa, Latin America. That's very interesting, and I hope that beyond this seminar, we can further develop projects and work with CFACT and the other organizations on how this international standardization can go to other regions. I hope that well, the work is going on, and I hope that I have answered your particular concern, which I repeat is quite interesting from the perspective of what we are doing. And I believe the CFACT experts will they think about it. We have experts from other African countries. For example, we work a lot with people from Senegal, from Ghana, from Kenya, and this work will continue. There are specific alliances for single window and trade facilitation in Africa, which work with UNCFACT. So the work is going on. Does anybody want to add something to this point?
Or I don't know if you'd like me to just say
yes,
briefly
please.
that UNCFACT has a global mandate. So it's not just European. We are talking about UNECE region and Ukraine, but we make standards for every country in the world. And any expert from any country in the world is welcome to join our work as well. And we're very happy when we do get experts from other regions in the world, because this helps us to make more robust standards. So that hopefully will be able to be pertinent not only for a European context or Japanese context or Indian context, but also for Congolese context or Senegalese or Moroccan or Somalian, why not? So you're more than welcome to join UNCFACT, and we're very happy for any input that you can provide into the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Well, I can see one more hand. This is Hugh Probert.
Yes, just one more input for myself. I don't want to keep us from our coffee break, but I think the reference earlier to the legal documents, and I think the collaboration with our UNECE transport colleagues, with IMO and with ICAO, these are going to be hugely important, because most of the work that's gone on in previous years has completely neglected, in my view, the fact that the legal requirements behind the documentation to support international trade has not been brought into account. So technically you can bring things together very easily if you don't take into account the legal aspects, but it's this collaboration that is really important if we're going to find a really good way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And of course, the legal side is quite difficult to handle, as Francesco mentioned, with the long-standing work on the unified railway law in Europe has shown. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the speakers and all the participants. At some point we reached 106. I hope that we can all join in 20 minutes again when we continue with this seminar. And as Eric was mentioning, this is a beginning. His call for an expert group can be handled with our modern technologies easily. And I hope that this is just the beginning of a work on this harmonization and standardization. Please send messages if you want us, like I suggested in the very beginning, that we establish a drafting team to which I invited several people like Alexander Fyodorov and who else wants to join for the recommendations from this seminar. We heard several very good suggestions during the discussion. Please keep the same mood in the afternoon. Sorry, well, not the afternoon, but in 15 minutes when Mr. Fyodorov will be moderating the discussion, and also today and the day after tomorrow. And let us, if you have suggestions, please send them by email to Mr. Fyodorov and me, so that we take them into account for the recommendations, which we will try to distribute to all major stakeholders that were mentioned today. Thank you very much. Let's meet in 11:30 in Central European time, and in Ukraine, Bulgaria, like 12:30. Meet you at in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario.
Господин Федоров, может быть, вы начнете уже следующую сессию? Mr. Fedorov, if you are.
День. Я микрофон включил и включил видео, но не убрали заставку. Я попрошу помощников убрать заставку с экрана. Мы начинаем нашу конференцию. Благодарю вас.
Пожалуйста, господин Федоров.
Добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа. Началась вторая сессия первого дня нашего 10-го международного семинара. Сессия, напомню, это практическое применение стандартизованных документов и документов для мультимодальных перевозок. Сессия охватывает тематику озвученную. И мы будем иметь несколько презентаций, в частности, одну от меня, от господина Юрия Поберея, который, к сожалению, не сможет присутствовать сегодня, но господин Верковский поможет с этой презентацией. Также будет господин Валерий Верковский и Йенс Хюгель, старший советник МСАД. Вопросы будут касаться и являются продолжением сегодняшней до сессии, до перерыва. И я надеюсь на ваше также активное участие. Кроме того, я благодарю господина Марио Апостолова за хорошее такое ведение и начало. Начало всегда является сложным. У нас с господином Апостоловым первая такая практика применения такой платформы видеоконференции с участием переводчиков. Я думаю, что и в дальнейшем это будет хорошим таким наглядным примером, что никакие коронавирусы, никакие границы нас не разъединяют, а могут только объединить. Во-первых, каждый чувствует себя дома. Всем добро пожаловать в нашу виртуальную Одессу. И в то же время каждый находится у себя и чувствует большое удовольствие с тем, что он может в любое время отойти от рабочего места, тут же видеть и слышать, что происходит. И в дополнение или в продолжение первой части я попросил бы, наверное, обратился бы к нашим спикерам, которые делали презентации, послать по электронной почте господину Апостолову и мне возможный перечень тех вопросов или предложений, которые мы могли бы включить в рекомендации для того, чтобы наполнить завершающий день не только рекомендациями, но и сделать, так сказать, рабочий план для последующих и конференций, и для последующих скоординированных действий в столь непростом деле объединения различных участников цепи поставок в единое целое и создание натурального оркестра, который совершенно четко знает роль места и совершенно четко понимает роль места и другого в цепи поставок. Вот это, как мне кажется, то, чего до сегодняшнего дня не хватало многим видам транспорта, когда один вид транспорта говорит, наши документы самое главное, второй вид транспорта говорит, нет, мы раньше начали делать такие транспортные документы, наш самый главный документ. А потом в результате мы приходим к таможне, таможня говорит, нет, наш самый главный документ, а все остальное это вы нам должны. Зачастую так оно и происходит, поэтому цель как раз нашего семинара сегодняшнего скоординировать такие действия в силу наших средств и возможностей и показать, что это совершенно возможно, совершенно реалистично сегодня иметь не набор распечатанных документов, а порой на одну отправку это 40 страниц, да, и много копий, а возможно иметь одну запись с каждым четким местом тех или иных данных, которые требуются в том или ином процессе или на том или ином этапе транспортировки. Вот, это как вступление. Одновременно всем в чат я послал ссылку на YouTube канал. Это будет и записываться, и транслируется в прямом эфире. Мы сможем в дальнейшем посмотреть, возможно, что-то разобрать, возможно, какие-то вопросы задать в последующем. Ну и останется на память каждому вот такая первая COVID-конференция участников нашего 10-го юбилейного международного семинара, организованного Организацией Объединенных Наций и нашей скромной украинской стороной. Благодарю. Сейчас я тогда перейду к своей презентации, ну и продолжим нашу сессию. Надеюсь, что она пройдет также быстро, безболезненно и будет полезна всем присутствующим. Вот как вы видели, презентация – это документы, используемые для грузовых перевозок цифровыми транспортными коридорами. Если посмотреть на карту, я не буду слишком академичен, просто покажу и презентацию сделаю быстро, что все-таки международные транспортные коридоры, они повсеместно, да? В частности, мы показываем связь север-юг и запад-восток. Украина с левой стороны, мы видим, что через территорию Украины, в общем-то, проходит 9 транспортных коридоров, но основные торговые пути лежат также и рядом. И самое главное, что оно красиво смотрится на карте, как же оно происходит в жизни. Не всегда так гладко, как рисуется на карте. Мы знаем, есть определение международный транспортный коридор. Это направление, маршрут массовых перевозок пассажиров, грузов между центрами социально-экономической активности, которая обслуживается несколькими видами транспорта, способными обеспечить высокие скорости перевозки, обладает развитой инфраструктурой, с помощью которой в полной мере реализуется интермодальная технология. Это определение Европейской экономической комиссии Организации Объединенных Наций. Я хотел бы обратить внимание лишь на один момент. Способными обеспечивать высокие скорости перевозки. Что в это закладывается? Высокая скорость перевозки на сегодняшний день движения транспортных средств имеют свои пределы. Так вот, общая скорость перевозки заключается еще и в том, где, когда происходят какие задержки. И самые большие задержки, как вы знаете, я показываю модель Cefac-Toulon, ту, которая уже была показана в первой части, покупка, перевозка, оплата. И все, что вы смотрите сейчас, вы сможете увидеть дальше. Мы видим несколько этапов. Это подготовка к экспорту, экспорт, это транспортировка, подготовка к импорту и, собственно, импорт. Казалось бы, 3 коротких слова. Покупка, перевозка, оплата. Купил, тебе переместили, ты оплатил, и ты получил этот товар. На самом деле в жизни происходит намного сложнее. Существует масса различных требований при подготовке. Это коммерческие процедуры, это транспортные процедуры, затем регулятивные процедуры, которые являются самыми сложными в этой цепи. потому что в каждом государстве есть свои правила, каждое государство иногда без опубликования до вступления в силу применяет какие-то новые требования. И тогда происходит коллапс, какими бы широкими дороги не были или какими бы короткими пути не были, даже в случае транзита. Транспортные процедуры в сопряжении именно с таможенными процедурами, а именно с этим сталкиваются и таможенники, и транспортники при пересечении границ. Видите, иногда и зачастую люди из разных министерств и ведомств, я с удовольствием использую этот слайд, который когда-то подготовила Сью Проберт. Это есть сноска, подготовлена по материалам ЕИК ООН. Это категории документов, зачастую, которые те или другие министерства, ведомства или участники цепей поставок путают, чей же этот документ и имеет ли он право требовать такой документ, и где об этом говорится. Мы видим семейство из 5 различных категорий документов. Торговые, документы управления материальными потоками, транспортные, таможенные и иные нормативные документы, как то сертификаты и прочее, что всегда говорится, и другое. Необходима декларация и другие документы. Так вот, это такие вот документы и существуют. Также, если разложить эти же документы, но в другой цепи, международная цепь поставок, то, что вы видели на предыдущем слайде, покупка, поставка и оплата, мы уже видим с точки зрения преломления качественных и количественных изменений, которые происходят, и тех требований, которые происходят. Это транспортная цепь поставок, это управление транспортной инфраструктурой, то, что связано с погрузкой, разгрузкой, складскими, портовыми операциями. И в правой стороне этого слайда вы видите, какие существуют на сегодняшний день и почему у семейства и множество различных систем информационных, которые обслуживают те или другие потоки, те или другие процессы. Зачастую непонимание в целом вот таких операций или существующей сложившейся практики у многих стейкхолдеров или тех, которые принимают какие-то решения, складывается совершенно неправильное отношение к тем или другим участникам и цепи поставок, и тех услуг, которые предоставляются. Переходим к следующему слайду. Мы сегодня говорим как раз о самых сложных документах, о самых сложных операциях в самых узких местах, бутылочных горлышках. Как спрашивал наш господин из Судана, вот разрешение, сертификаты, суды, контроль движения, лоцманские проводки, подход и получение информации о грузах для таможни зачастую бывает очень-очень в короткое время подается. Да, ответ был, что на сегодняшний день существуют практики, когда есть за 24 часа, когда есть еще до погрузки на транспортное средство информация должна предоставляться сопредельной стороне, но такая практика еще широко не работает. Да, сегодня есть новое положение о среде единого морского окна, и где описаны все эти процедуры, в том числе в связи с другими существующими системами, такими как операционные системы, информационные системы морских портов, системы коммерческие, системы международного